आपादमौलिपर्यन्तं गुरूणामाकृतिं स्मरेतेन विघ्नप्रणश्यन्ति सिद्धन्ति च मनोरथाः लक्ष्मीतनोतुनितरामितरानपेक्षमं निगमशाकिशिखाप्रवालं हैरम्बमम्बुरुहडम्बरचौर्यनित्रं विघ्नाद्रिभेदशतधारधुरन्धरन्नः सर्वेषां स्वागतम्. So this is the positive psychology session for the 14th shloka. So in the 14, in going by the chronology, the first 11 to 13 shlokas included the Purva Pakshavada. And there we spoke about a concept of resilience. There too I had mentioned grit. So today we will be looking at grit. Now, what is the difference between that and this resilience? We talked about three different things: the positive emotion, the proactiveness. So there we are talking about how to face opposition. But now we are coming back. Rama has to rebuttal, he has to do the Purva Paksha Khandana. So for that, there has to be grit. Now, what do we mean by grit? It is passionate perseverance for something. So here, the argument that is given by Rama has its own merits. He has he has huge clarity about that. Therefore, he has to defend that now. So in that case, what happens is the passionate, the here passionate is the English term for that, but perseverance, I think everybody understands. The attachment, not even attachment would again bring about the priya part of it. The clarity that he has with regard to his argument is making him defend his argument against those objections. And this needs some perseverance. He has to perceive it against all odds. And he has to have passion. He has to be passionate about what he thinks. Passionate. In here, we are not going to talk about passion in the most stereotypical sense. It is more with respect to the clarity he has with respect to his solution. That means whatever he had suggested, with respect to that, the clarity he has, the passion, that can be taken. So what are the key components of this grit? Now, again, when we talk about resilience, resilience is mostly psychological, and it has to do with our initiation of certain activities. Grit becomes the it becomes the start. It becomes whatever resilience has initiated, grit becomes the start of those actions. So what did we do to defend ourselves? First, for this, we need to understand there has to be interest with respect to grit. That means there has to be an interest to defend. It is like insurable interest, they say, when we go for insurance. So what is that insurable interest? I'm obviously insuring something. In case something happens, they're going to be indemnified. That is there. But I should also have an interest to safeguard that particular thing on which I'm getting an insurance. That is called as insurable interest. So there has to be an interest for me to defend my argument. Like previously mentioned, we are not going to reject the Purva Paksha completely, because their argument might also have some merit. So we have to listen to them. But the point is, even after listening to their argument, even after listening to them, we need to bring, obviously their way of putting forth an argument is going to be different from our way of putting forth an argument. The elements are going to be different. The logic applied is going to be different. So in this way, first we need to bring them to parallels. This may be a different example, drishtanta. This, what we gave, is a different drishtanta. We need to first bring about elemental matching of it. When we do that, we try to understand where the logic that we have applied and what is the logic that they have applied. This is only possible when there is intrinsic motivation, that is the interest to do it, and there is a deliberate practice from our end. That means we need to have some amount of practice in that. I cannot defend a certain principle of mathematics if I've never solved a problem in that. How can I tell them that this Pythagoras theorem, the application of Pythagoras theorem in trigonometry, how can I prove it to somebody when I have never solved problems with regard to that? So it's extremely important that I need to practice that effort. So for the grit, like I said, grit is more karma oriented. So for this, I must have interest and I must have deliberate practice and I must have a purpose. What is the purpose of this? The purpose is not to prove that I am right. This is one important thing that we need to understand. Purpose means there should be meaning and there should be relevance. Meaning being that the right argument must be concluded, relevance being that we need to get rid of the misinterpretations, that is the erroneous application of logic, vitarkavadinaha, that we need to bring about. We need to show this cannot be applied in this way for obvious contradiction, and we need to show whether they are, we are not saying that they are mutually exclusive. But that is what the Purva Pakshavadin says, that they can be complementary to each other. So we have to show no, in nature itself they are mutually exclusive. Jnana means to attain a certain knowledge that shows that how to get rid of attachment, but Kriya creates attachment. So obviously they have to be mutually exclusive by nature. They cannot go hand in hand. So understanding this requires meaning and relevance. Meaning being that we need to bring about the true argument, conclude with the true argument, and relevance being to get rid of the misinterpretations involved. And then there is hope. Hope being the resilience part of it. That is always make sure, because once we make a Purva Paksha Khandana, it is not that they are all going to accept it. They are also going to bring about new arguments. Certain arguments have gone on for thousands of years. When it comes to Sampradayas, Advaita, Advaita, and Vishishta Advaita, we see the arguments with regard to whatever they believe that goes on for around 1,000 years. We have literature. So obviously, there has to be hope that our particular way of argument or the tattva that we are talking about, that will be accepted, or that has some sat guna in it. There is some validity in it. That is hope that gives out that brings about resilience and optimism for us. And then self control. These are the components of grit. So self control here, what happens is we cannot get. We spoke about passionate, right? Passion cannot get out of hand. It cannot be such that I start saying, um, you don't understand anything about it. We start taking it, personalizing things. That cannot be the scenario. It has to be very objective. We have to separate it. Even when we look at, I had already mentioned this, we cannot personalize Rama and Sita's story over here. We have to understand it objectively, completely objectively, because once we start thinking it from the perspective of our own experiences, then there is no point in searching for an answer, because we have already become prejudiced with that. How do I say that my perspective as a son is not harming my perspective as a husband or my perspective as a child? So experiences superimposing on a certain analysis must be avoided. So therefore, self-control is extremely important. And the characteristics of this is that it brings about persistence. There is resilience in thought. Resilience is to face objections and come out with whatever we are saying. Persistence, that means sticking to an argument. Focus, bringing about we are not getting vichalita, we are not getting diverted into something else. Our focus is still proving that this argument has clarity. There is some satkaryavada in this. There is truth in it. So focus, determination, self discipline, these are some of the characteristics of grit. And the point of this grit, this was actually put forth by um, a person named Angela Duckworth. So, why is this important? Is that it brings about a real life betterment in terms of well-being, mental health, personal growth, all those things. So this grit must be there. So there is a book by her called as The Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. So this grit is it is a very action oriented concept, and it can be used in real life also. In psychology, there are exercises for this as well. So this is a concept of positive psychology that is showcased in the 14th verse of Sri Rama Gita. So with this, we will conclude the positive psychology session. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः प्रतिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीमहीषा गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि.